Good morning, everyone. We are going to be charged overtime on our rent of the room if we don't get busy here today. I think we're mostly in our places with bright, shiny faces. So this is the full committee of the House Commerce Committee. I'm Kevin Vaughn. I'll be your host today. Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Representatives Alexander, Boyd, Calfee,
Present.
Camper, Faison, Haston,
Chairman.
Hazelwood,
I've got some folks here.
Hodges,
Here.
Holsclaw, Johnson,
Here.
Lynn, Manis, Moon, Powell, Powers, Sparks, Thompson, Towns, Vital, Zachary, Vice Chairman Bricken, Chairman Vaughn.
Present.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
All righty, thank you. Before we get into today's calendar, do we have any personal orders from the members? Any personal orders? I've got one from Representative Calfee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the, right here to our right is the leadership Roane County, and we're glad to have them today. And my wife, Marilyn, AKA the Silver Fox, is with them, and my assistant, Leonard. So if you'd make them welcome, I'd appreciate it.
Welcome very much. And the halls are always a little brighter when we know that the Fox is on the prowl up here. Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several folks. I have a constituent, Paul Klein, in the back. A fellow, Scott Banbury, who will be my constituent if the voters send me back next year. And several friends, Sarah Houston, Ward Archer, Justin Pearson, and maybe some others I'm not thinking of right now.
All right, and welcome to you folks. Representative Towns, did I see your hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not introducing a stranger. There's a former member that happens to be in the back there. He hadn't been here in a while. Some of y'all, I'm pretty sure you know him because he used to be the chairman of the party on the Democratic side. Mike Turner, if you don't mind, stand and raise your hand, sir. Good to see you, Mike. You're doing well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. See, I can see you when I don't have my cheaters on. When I've got those on, I struggle to see down on the front row. But today, hadn't got them on just yet, so I can pick you up. Chairman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to recognize someone. Teresa Duncan is here with Roane State Community College. She's a vice president, and one reason I need to recognize her, she's my wife's immediate supervisor because my wife is a campus director. But Teresa, we're glad to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, and we sure hope that performance evaluation recognizes that shout out. All right, before we get into today's calendar, we've got some housekeeping to do based upon information that my office has received. House Bill 1698 will be rolled 1 week without objection. Rolled 1 week. Let's see. Next up on the calendar, we've got. Hold on. House Bill 2346 by Chairman Boyd has been requested to be rolled 1 week without objection. It's rolled 1 week.
That's item 8.
Item 8, excuse me. House Bill 2346. Next one is my bill, which is House Bill 1989. Before I bid it adieu, I would like to say some words over it. It's kind of in the vein, I'm sure some of you as children growing up, your mother, after behaving badly, she might have said the words of, "I brought you into this world and don't make me be the one to take you out." That's what's going to happen to Bill 1989. I brought it into this world and it too shall go away. It was a bill born of a spirit of cooperation by Mid-South Council of Mayors that was brought to me to bring this bill forward for the idea of an interstate compact. And it was meant specifically to chase infrastructure dollars for West Tennessee, which is in desperate need of infrastructure to support the Blue Oval City and some of the other items we see. It's been an agrarian area for so long, but it's going to be, I'm going to be taking it off notice because sometimes you just get a hold of things, and I'm one that has people stand before us all the time, and I say, you're filled with great intentions, but the words on your paper do not make good policy. That is what I brought to this group, unfortunately. And so as a result, I am taking it off notice and without objection. And then House Bill 2246 is a bill that I am carrying. I feel a little bit differently about that. It is a bill, though, that I do know we need more conversation on, that is more conversation that is not specific, that frankly, we could clog up these rooms for quite a while in the discussion. So what we're going to do is I'm going to roll that bill for 2 weeks, but next Monday at 10 a.m. and room 8C upstairs, we're going to have a stakeholders meeting to discuss this bill with people who either want to present amendments, want to get clarification. So next Monday at 10 o'clock in room 8C, we will be discussing this bill. We will be looking at amendments the following week, and then hopefully hear it back here again 2 weeks from today. And so with that, yes, Representative Towns.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a good idea to roll it and we talk about the bill in particular, but you talked about next Monday at 10 o'clock. You got a lot of people coming from 200 or 300 miles away, won't be able to make it necessarily. So, I mean, what is the deal where, because a lot of the members may want to be in that meeting. So that's not really the best time for some of us coming in on a Monday. That means you got to come in on a Sunday night. So how can we accommodate the members that may want to come?
Well, Representative Towns, I've seen you drive on I-40. I would think that a 7 o'clock departure time would put you here by 10 o'clock.
I could get on a fax machine too.
But so if we're going to have our meeting, we dealt with our landlords on procuring the appropriate room and the appropriate space, and 10 o'clock next Monday is when we will hear it. So,
well, Mr. Chairman, in the future, I'd love for members to be considered that want to come to the meetings from that far without having to come in on a Sunday.
understood, duly noted. Without objection, it's being rolled 2 weeks. So that leaves us with Representative Calfee standing at the podium waiting to discuss House Bill 2463. Representative Calfee, we have a motion and a second. Your bill's properly before us. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this is my lucky day. I've got constituents here, and somebody left me a coffee mug. And that's the reason I drank out of a Hershey syrup bottle, because I don't want to leave anything of value sitting around anywhere. But this is a good bill. Have you ever heard that before? It's a comptroller bill, and all it does, it changes local governments who are self-insured on workers' comp from the reporting deadline from December 31st to March 31st, so it'll coincide with their audit schedule. And that's my bill.
It is properly before us. There's motion and a second. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, we're going to call the question. We're calling the question on House Bill 2463. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Ayes have it. You are off to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman.
Calfee. Next up on our calendar is House Bill 2103 by Representative Alexander. She is presenting in another room. We are going to roll her to the heel. Next up is Senate Joint Resolution 954, I believe is Representative Vital carrying that one. All righty, Representative Vital. Have we got a motion on our SJR? Not hearing?
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. You, sir, are properly before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring before you Senate Joint Resolution 954, which celebrates the centennial of the Jones Act. Created in the early 1920s by the U.S. Congress, the Jones Act requires vessels carrying cargo on American waterways, including the Tennessee, Cumberland, and Mississippi rivers, to be built in America, crewed by American mariners, and owned by American corporations. The maritime industry is key to Tennessee's strength and security. Tennessee's 950-mile-long network of navigable waterways makes it a critical hub in the nation's transportation system. Tennessee is home to 20,630 maritime jobs supported by the Jones Act. We are the 8th highest per capita in the state, all 50 states, in income, generating $1.24 billion in workers' income from the maritime industry. The current global pandemic that demonstrates the critical importance of maintaining resilience for domestic industries and transportation service for the citizens of Tennessee and America. This resolution reaffirms the importance of the maritime industry in Tennessee and the important employees of those industries in this state. I move for adoption.
All right. Any questions of Representative Vital? Chairman Powers.
Just one, I want to represent Vital, just an obvious question. Who is Jones?
I do not have that answer, but I can get that information for you.
That's close enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The question has been called. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 954, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. 954 is off to calendar and rules. Next up, Representative Powell is going to be presenting House Bill 1274. I got a motion and a second on the bill. You're in proper posture, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, there is a amendment. I know
Yes,
it's
sir.
probably-
Is it 13790?
That's correct.
Excellent. We're all on the same page. We've got a motion on the amendment. We have a second? We have a second. Is this, no, it adds to the bill. Okay. Well, let's discuss your amendment and then we'll get to the bill.
Sure. So the amendment simply clarifies some legislation I know, Chairman, that you passed, and also changes the effective date to December 1st, 2023. So those are not in conflict.
All righty. Sounds great. We've got our dates in order, synced up. Any discussion, any questions for Representative Powell? Seeing none, we're going to put amendment, this will be amendment one on the bill. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the bill is on there. All right, let's talk about work share.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate members considering the bill. This bill, something we worked on, introduced last year, and wanted to continue to work on it, reach out to interested parties to make sure there was interest. Also, for those who might have attended the Southern Legislative Conference last year here in Nashville, there was actually a forum on this specific kind of work-share program legislation. So let me tell you what basically work-share is. It's a volunteer shared work and unemployment benefits program that allows certain employers to submit to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development for approval a plan to reduce work hours in exchange for employee access to certain level of unemployment compensation benefits. Programs such as the Shared Work Unemployment Benefit programs are designed as a reduction or alternative to layoffs for employers who have been faced with a reduction in available work. It also allows an unaffected group of employees the ability to collect unemployment benefits while working reduced hours. So work-share programs let businesses temporarily reduce their hours of their employees instead of laying them off during economic downturns, or like we saw with the pandemic a couple of years ago. Technically referred to as a short-term compensation, the goal of work-sharing programs is to reduce unemployment. Work-share programs benefit businesses, workers, and states because businesses retain their trained workforce to easily recall to full-time work when economic conditions improve. There's 26 states in full that have passed these work-share programs, including states like Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Iowa, Kansas. The list goes on and on. And at the end of the day, I think this is a great thing for the state, great thing for businesses as an alternative. And any plan would have to be, of course, approved by the department. With that, I stand ready for questions.
All righty. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you bringing this for our consideration. I'm a fan of it. When I was in, for those of us in the real estate and architecture and engineering and construction businesses, they call the time 2006 to 2011 the Great Recession. And it wasn't, it was a depression. And so firms I worked with, we decided as a group, we were either going to, reduce hours for everyone or we were going to eliminate positions. This allows for people who decide from a management standpoint to make that tough call for them to receive some help for keeping people in the habit of coming to work, going to work, as opposed to being at home waiting on a call. And for that, I think this is a great program for us to participate in. The other thing that I like about it is that it allows people to a degree to seek other employment, but it's all managed under the state plan, and it doesn't have people out there freewheeling. So I'm a big fan of this. Do we have any questions for anybody about any more about it? Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a question, but I would like to say, thank you for bringing this bill, because there are a lot of businesses who have invested in training for their employees and could run the risk of losing those employees and all the resources that they've put in and invested in their employees. So they give them an opportunity to keep them. Like you said, when we get ready to come out of this, they're able to retain them and still continue to grow and move their company forward. So thank you for bringing this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And as Chairman Vaughn, I appreciate the kind words. And also, as you pointed out, there could be a specific downturn to a certain industry. And so it's important to have that flexibility for that industry, because sometimes those employees are very tough to come by. And so I think that's also, appreciate the comments, Leader, about another useful purpose of this legislation.
As I said, I'm a fan. I signed on. It's a proof that good ideas can be hatched anywhere in this building, and we ought to support them. With that, seeing no more questions for the sponsor, we are going to call the question. All those in favor of passing 1274 on to finance, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. 1274 is off to finance. House Bill 2697 by Representative Parkinson. He gave priority to another bill in another committee, but we don't hold that against him. We're going to roll him to the heel as requested. So that brings us to 2304 by Chairman Boyd.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Sir, you were properly before us. Please tell us about this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment.
Would that be 015069?
Yes, sir. That's the amendment.
I like it when we're on the same page. We got a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment just makes various technical changes that the Department of Financial Institutions sent to me.
All right, let's get that into position, and then we'll talk about the bill. All those in favor of attaching Amendment 1 to House Bill 2304, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. You're ready to roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2304 comes to us from the mortgage loan originators, and they had been working remote during the pandemic and had been working remote probably otherwise. And what this does, it kind of codifies the practice. It's model legislation that's being done around the country. It does a few things. It defines what a remote location is, that it's something other than the licensed facility. It makes sure that each company has security policies and procedures in place that protect consumer data and records. It ensures the companies and the remote employees, the mortgage loan originators, comply with their procedures and all federal and state security laws. It makes it clear that no customer interactions can take place at a residence. But the gist of the bill is that it will allow mortgage loan originators to be, if they need to work outside of their licensed facility, they can do that. Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for the bill sponsor? Representative Townsend.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sponsor, obviously, today everybody's working remotely from different parts of the world even. And I think the concept absolutely is fitting with the times. In order to protect the consumer, the information that is generated on the computer of the person that's working remotely, how is that information secured? Because those computers may not have the security of the headquarters location, HQ location. How are we ensuring that that information is secure at that remote locationer's computer?
Representative Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. the records and everything still have to be kept at the other place, but if they had a computer or something, they could go remote. So you can't store customer data or information remotely. It just allows the MLO to go remote to do their job.
Representative Towns, follow up.
Certainly. What I'm saying is that if I have your information on my computer, you're buying or purchasing a home or a commercial property, what have you. My security at my personal residence or wherever I may be, is it going to be enough to secure your credentials, your private information properly? Because computers are hacked all the time. They're being hacked everywhere. I mean, right now, as we're dealing with what's happening in the world, we're concerned about, our computers being hacked at certain levels around the country. So will that information be secure, or is it that information only on the host computer, which is, I'm going to call that where the headquarters site is? I'm only concerned about information that needs to be secure, your personal information.
Thank you, Representative Towns. Representative Boyd, Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the amendment in item number 4, it actually details that. It describes that customer interactions, data, and conversations about consumers will comply with the federal and state information security requirements. And so these rules are established by the Federal Trade Commission. So they do have to comply with that.
Thank you, sir.
All righty.
Question on the bill.
We've got a question on the bill. Without objections, anybody who is in favor of House Bill 2304, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All of you who are opposed, I heard none. 2304 is off to calendar and rules. Next up, we have House Bill 2310 by Representative Griffey. We've got a motion and a second. You're in proper posture, Representative Griffey. Talk to us about House Bill 2310.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Members of the committee, Todd Staley with the Department of Finance Administration indicated to me that of 2020, there were a total of 9 million foreign money transfer transactions from Tennessee to foreign countries, not U.S. territories. And the total amount of the money that left the Tennessee economy was $2.7 billion. What House Bill 2310 would do would impose a $2 fee per transaction and will allow $1 for the money transfer agent to charge the customer. And if a person is a U.S. Military personnel or a spouse, if they show ID, then they would not have to pay the fee. So that's what the bill does. There is an amendment. I think there may be a couple of amendments proposed too. One by me and one by maybe some members, the chairman and some others.
Thank you, sir. We have before us I know it was amended in subcommittee, but I also know there is a proposed amendment by Chairman Powers. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to hear from Chairman Powers on his bill. Then we'll get the bill in proper posture, and then we'll go out of session to hear from Mr. Staley. So Representative Powers, you're recognized on House Amendment 3, which is drafting code 014722.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor.
By the way, we need to get that one in
Yes.
posture. Got a motion. Do I have a second? Motion second. Here we go. Chairman Powers.
Okay, this actually will rewrite the bill, and all it's doing is requiring individuals who are transmitting money from Tennessee just to show a photo ID like we do for alcohol, tobacco, get on a plane, anything like that. It will also prevent any kind of a fee from being charged, and there is no requirement. It will completely exclude any kind of business to business transfer. So it's just simply showing an ID. And with that, I make a motion to put the amendment on the bill.
All righty. We've got a motion to attach this amendment. All in favor, please.
Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's on there. Representative Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to advocate that, or at least point out to the committee that I believe the bill is written, it would, according to physical review, would generate $7 million of tax revenues for enforcement purposes. If the amendment takes the fee out, that revenue won't be available for tax enforcement purposes. So just
And we understand that. And another way to look at it, Representative Griffey, is we just saved you from passing a $7 million tax increase. So it's different perspectives for different folks. Well, what we're going to do right now is we're going to go out of session and hear from the department. Mr. Staley, would you come and share with us some of the concerns that the administration has about this bill? So we are now out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, Todd Staley, Department of Financial Institutions. Just want to take a quick moment to speak in opposition to the bill, even with the adopted amendment. The department is currently working on comprehensive model legislation that's come out of CSBS, that's the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, that is looking to create some uniformity among the states and standardized how this industry is regulated among the states. And so certainly this legislation and the amendment that's been proposed and adopted would make Tennessee a bit of an outlier in this area at a time when, frankly, we're trying to make some consistency in how this industry is regulated from a state level.
All righty, thank you. And I've got a question about that because everyone knows, or I wouldn't say that everyone knows that not everybody's as hip as others with regards to the electronic money transferring in the statistics that are presented. Does your department, do those capture, and this is for just information purposes only, out of those 9 million transactions going overseas, are those tracked, do those include business to business, personal only, or are they bill pays? Is there any differentiation between the statistics that you provide with regard, because that's an astounding number.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. That figure is all transactions. So that would include business to business, person to person, online bill pay that uses a money transmitter. It doesn't differentiate between individuals that go into a brick and mortar location and send money versus someone who is using an app or an online method or a business to business transaction.
All right. And then the last thing that I would ask before, I'm sure we've got probably some other questions from our members. With regards to existing, I don't want us to be up here passing laws for the sake of passing law, just to say we've done something. But could you talk about the requirements today for presentation of identity? I know that on a lot of apps, if you have it, they're tied to bank accounts. Because one of the things that is a concern is that if for people who are going in to transmit money, if they can't show an ID, they're locked out, or they're going to have to resort to dealing with unbanked folks. And we know that there's a propensity for them to encounter risk of nefarious behavior when that happens. Could you help us with understanding the lay of the land with regards to folks presenting identification for money transmission before we consider this piece of legislation?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, so today, money transmitters are considered money services businesses, and they have to comply with the Bank Secrecy Act, and it has certain identification requirements, know your customer, and whatnot, and there's thresholds involved today as far as when those requirements are triggered. And so we do know that there are instances, as you've pointed out, where individuals may be using an app or online method where that money services business is using a different method to verify the person's identity instead of a photo identification card, whether it's tied to a bank account, a credit card, or just some other means. And so obviously the bill has concerns with how some of those businesses would comply with this particular requirement.
So what we would be doing would be elevating the bar for identification presentation for lower denominations that are transmitted than are currently guided by the Bank Secrecy Act, or I guess it could be even back to the Patriot Act days with regards to that. But So this would lower that down, but you're concerned about the confusion that this not, of people complying with this. Could you give me just one more brief explanation of that? And then I'll go to other members who may have questions.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I think the department looks at it from a regulatory standpoint of, we know companies are verifying identity in different methods than a photo identification card. And so there are some concerns or unknowns of how businesses will be able to comply with the requirement for all transactions.
All right. Any other members have any other questions? Representative Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for coming out today. Yeah, can you talk just a little bit about, and you covered, I think, part of that, but talk just a little bit about what, without naming actually any companies, but what companies would be unable to do this? I mean, it looks like a pretty simple application, but maybe there are some companies that would not be able to comply with it. So could you talk a little bit about what companies could not comply with it, please?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I don't think I get into specific companies. I think
Right.
the concern
No
is,
names, I'm sorry. No.
yeah, thank you. I think that the concern would be whether or not those companies, they would eventually be able to comply, but whether or not they have systems in place today to accept a photo identification card as to verify identity, because they may already be using a different means today. So there's just unknowns, and I certainly don't want to speak for the industry on that.
Chairman Powers, follow up.
Thank you. Yes, I do. What percentage, or do you have any way of knowing that? Do you have a way of knowing what areas that money's going out to? Is there any way to determine exactly where money's been sent outside the country, or is there any way to determine whether anything is traveling? I know based on what you said a minute ago, we have some laws already in place for transmissions to certain areas, but I mean, if someone is illegally transmitting money or shouldn't be, is there any way to track that right now?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I would be able to speak to how specific companies are putting in those safeguards. I mean, we look at it from a risk-focused standpoint of, companies that are engaged in this type of activity need to have policies and procedures in place to make sure that they know their customers and are able to comply with federal and state regulations. From a data standpoint, we collect the call reports from this industry, and everything is in the aggregate. So I don't think we can pinpoint down into how many of these transactions are in person, how many transactions. We can pinpoint the country of destination,
Okay.
and we do have that data that we've provided to fiscal review, and are happy to provide the committee.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Bricken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions. One, you mentioned that the Department of Financial Institutions is working on a unified, I guess, policy or legislation. Do you know for certain that will be coming before us next year?
Well, not with certainty, Mr. Chairman, but the commissioner is committed to this, and all the other states are looking at it. We are currently in the process of reviewing what's been proposed by CSBS and how that fits into current regulations and what changes we would need to make, to make it, for Tennessee. But that is the intention, is to bring it before the administration next year for consideration, and then to bring it to you all in terms of legislation.
Okay.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. The second question, and it's maybe for you and the sponsor, the question about a photo ID versus a valid ID. I'm not sure if the amendment specifies a photo ID or just a valid ID. So I'd like to get clarification of that from someone.
I believe that comes from the amendment sponsor. And then we'll go to Mr. Staley for his commentary.
Okay, and we were out of session.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
if you don't care, could we talk to legal and get an explanation, please?
Sure,
that
while we're
had
out of
drafted
session,
that
we can just
reply?
do just about anything we
Anything we
want to.
want to
So,
do, okay.
all righty.
Let's go to
Jamie, if
legal
you
and
could
get
give us
that.
your name and who you're with and tell us what we're looking for.
Thank you, Chairman. Jamie Shanks, Office Legal Services. In the amendment that y'all adopted, it says valid identification means a valid form of identification issued by the United States or a state or territory of the United States.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Chairman.
You know, with that identification, first of all, every money transmitter should already be identifying every customer that comes to their counter to wire money. So this legislation should not be putting any burden on any transmitter that's already not doing their business correctly. So I do not see the problem with passing this amendment. It should be the normal business protocol of these businesses. So with that, sir, I will be supporting the amendment. So.
All righty, at this point in time, just for clarification, we do have the amendment attached. We're in consideration of the bill, but technically we're out of session. Representative Towns, you have a question for our guest.
Mr. Chairman, I do, and I need some better understanding, I guess, with what is currently the case. Say if I wanted to transfer money, okay, from here to anywhere, let's say right now, any country you pick out, what's the procedure for me? What do I go through? What do I have to do in order to complete that transaction?
So Representative Towns, it would depend on which company that you chose to engage that business in, whether you went into a brick and mortar location
Okay,
and went up to a counter and said, I've got this amount of money. I'd like to send it to this destination, to this person who's in whatever their destination is. And that company would assist you in that transaction. Likewise, you could have a mobile application or do the transaction online using another company. And so they would all have similar procedures, but not necessarily identical procedures on how those transactions would be handled.
so as we speak today, online, do I need an ID online to do it? If I had an app, do I need?
It would just depend on how that company verified your account and how they verified your identity. It may be that you have an existing relationship with them where you use a login or something different. I don't have specifics on how each individual company operates.
Okay. The old Western Union, okay? I remember of that and how they did it. And when you went in, you tendered so much money to them and you paid a fee and they sent it wherever you wanted it to go. Okay. And I don't remember you having to have an ID to transact sending money to whomever, but I do recall that you had to fill out the information for the person the money's going to, obviously, and maybe give a password, something of that nature. So if you have to have a U.S. ID, United States government ID, according to what legal said, does that preclude people from being able to transfer money? Because there may be people that don't have that ID.
Yes, Representative Towns, I believe that's correct, that if they did not hold a ID that was issued by the U.S. government, a state government, or its territory, they would not be able to conduct that type of transaction.
All right, Representative Towns, you good or you got one?
Yeah, one more, just a little follow-up. So
Okay.
what that means, obviously, folks, we know that we have quite a few people that are here that are working, and they send money for their children, they send money to their families, just another. That will stop that is what I'm thinking I'm getting at. That's what I'm seemingly uncovering. And which, as I think the chairman may have alluded to, is that they're going to find other ways, nefarious ways, loan sharks or what have you, to do the very same thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Staley before we go back into session? Seeing none. We
you,
appreciate your comments,
thank you, Mr.
Dave.
Chairman
Thank you
and
for being here. We're back in
idea.
session and we are back on
Not a good idea.
House Bill 2310, discussions on the bill. Do we have questions for the sponsor? Do we have questions or comments with regards to the bill? Yes, sir. Mr. Sponsor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the chairman and members of the committee, I would just like to point out that the physical review on when they calculated for the bill originally before it was amended, was indicated that it would increase business revenue by $82.5 million, fiscal year 22-23, and then would increase business revenue $165 million each year for fiscal year 23-24 through 25-26, and then another $82 million for fiscal year 26-27. In addition, according to the Federation of Americans for Immigration Reform in their 2017 study, that the cost of illegal aliens and their kids to Tennessee state taxpayers was $793 million in that year. So I know there's some concerns about imposing a tax, and I get that. We don't want to tax our citizens. We don't have to. My point about the bill is this is money that normally circulates in our communities and goes to these other businesses, sales tax, and generates money for our locals and the state. But when this money leaves the state of Tennessee forever, I would like for us as a body, the General Assembly, to try to identify that, find out who's sending it, where it's going. And to me, my bill is attempt as a first step to let's try to get a better handle on what's going on. I think Mr. Staley's even pointed out that it's really unclear how much money and where it's going and what the actual different vendors are using in that process. So I would just encourage the committee, and I appreciate them, the amendment and trying to do something. This is just an issue I think we all ought to try to address. And I hope when I'm not here next year that somebody else will pick the ball up and run with it. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Representative Griffey. And I'll say that you have brought attention to this. This has been one of the things that you brought up last year and has frankly got me a lot more interested in the issue and trying to determine it. I guess a counterpoint to your point about that money being gone from the not being circulated in the Tennessee economy is I could make the argument that the same thing happens when I deposit an IRA payment into my TD Ameritrade account in New York, that money is now not circulating. And so it's a matter of intentions of money and what people are intending to do with it. So, and I wouldn't want to pay an extra $2 fee to the state of Tennessee to put money into my 401k or my IRA. And so as you begin to balance all this out, it's trying to seek a point of fairness, because there is the point that you keep bringing up about the fact of these transmissions are of sizable nature. And this is not money that is, it's not amounts that do not draw attention. And so from that standpoint, I think you've done an excellent job of bringing this issue to the forefront and let us continue to wrangle with it. I'm glad to know that we've got this, who knows, we may even call the department the Griffey bill when it comes in, whenever we see the fruits of the attention that you've drawn to it as they come in and look at reforming our Money Transmissions Act. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about your bill as it stands amended. And Representative Lynn has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had thought that the original intent of your bill, or the concern, was about large sums of money leaving where potentially the money was derived from drug sales, and then they were sending it back to another country to pay for or buy more, whatever it was. I didn't realize the concern was about money just not circulating in our state or leaving our state, because I really think, as the chairman says, you really just can't control what people do with their money. Some people invest it, they put it in a bank, they put it in a piggy bank. They do all kinds of different things with their money where it's not out there in circulation, but that's their choice. That is their choice. I had thought the problem you're trying to get at was perhaps drug sales and large sums of money, which we're not even thinking about or aware of, going overseas. So which is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. It's actually both. My main concern is, as you bring up, was potential drug proceeds being transferred out to foreign countries that we're not really aware of. And that's why I was trying to do some sort of modest fee to generate revenue so that we could use that for law enforcement purposes, for additional investigation purposes, to find out, get a better grasp of the problem. And it's not putting it on, trying not to put it on Tennessee taxpayers so much, but the people that were sending the money out of the state of Tennessee. So, but there are businesses that may use this. I think most businesses, if it's a significant amount, probably use the SWIFT system through their bank because it's secure and they've already got their banking relationship established. But I think all these questions just, tend to focus that we're not really clear just what's going on in the marketplace regarding this. There is concern, at least from my part, that it could be drug proceeds and just benefits from folks working here illegally. And so that's why I was hoping we would at least do an ID and maintain a copy of that ID for law enforcement, financial institutions review purposes. So.
Sponsor, I think we have rolled it around a little bit. Everybody's got a taste for it. I think it's time to vote on this thing. For all those without objection, let's call it for a vote. All those in favor of passing House Bill 2310 as amended, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? No. You know what we're going to do, Mr. Griffey, Representative Griffey? We're going to go to a roll call because I know you loved it and I know you forgot to ask for it. So we're going to give it to you today in honor of you bringing this bill before us. All right. Madam Clerk, or Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Alexander, Boyd, Calfee, Camper, Faison, Haston, Hazelwood, Hodges, Holzclaw, Johnson, Lynn, Menace, Moon, Powell, Powers, Sparks, Thompson, Towns, Vital, Zachary, Vice Chairman Bricken, Chairman Vaughn.
I'm a yes. Unfortunately, we end in a tie, and in that case, it's my understanding that the bill does fail. So 2310 will not be proceeding, but thanks for bringing a vigorous discussion today, Representative Griffey. Hey. $26.08.
All right. This bill has an amendment, and sponsor, would you like to state the amendment?
Yes, sir. The amendment is 013742.
That is correct. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Does the amendment make the bill?
Yes, sir, it does.
Can we go ahead and get the amendment on the bill by a vote? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right. The amendment is on the bill.
All right, folks, what this bill proposes is that the sales and use tax for broadband purchases through these broadband grants that are going out through ECD will be exempt from sales and use tax. The thought process of it is that we want that industry to receive a net value of the dollars that we're receiving. So if we're going to be spending money, taking it from one pocket, putting it in the other, that's not getting it out into the field where this equipment needs to be deployed. I understand it has a significant fiscal note, But that's something that I would be offering great reasons to the Finance Committee to consider this bill. I'm aware of that, but anyway, I would sure appreciate your consideration of it.
Any questions on the bill? Chairman Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had one. Did you mention the fact that I think it goes away in 3 years? Is that right?
That is correct,
Okay.
Chairman Powers. It sunsets in 3 years.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We have a question on the bill. Seeing no objection. Oh, Representative Powell?
Clarification, isn't it 5 years, not 3 years?
December 23.
Scratch that. It is indeed 5 years. I apologize. It was not an attempt to mislead. It was more of a evidence of incompetence.
See,
5 years is the term.
Mr. Chairman, when you help me pass my bill, I'll help you pass your bill.
I appreciate it.
All right, I still think we have a question on the bill. Seeing no objections, all in favor of House Bill 2608, say aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, House Bill 2608 moves on to Finance. Congratulations, Chairman. Pass it back.
Thank you. We're going back, coming off the heel of the calendar. I'll tell you what, Representative Alexander is going to be here with us, so I will take Chairman's discretion and call on Representative Parkinson. House Bill 2697 is properly before us. Representative Parkinson, could you please tell us what it does? And we've also got an amendment, I see.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So we've got Amendment 012931.
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell us about what we're talking about.
So I want to give you a little context of what we're doing. We're streamlining and creating an opportunity for us to provide more instructors in the cosmetology and barbering industry. And just so this is what that context looks like. Right now, if you go through a master barbering school, you go through for 1,500 hours, you learn everything about barbering. You go through a cosmetology school, you go through for 1,500 hours, you learn everything about cosmetology. Then you decide, hey, I want to be an instructor in one of those fields. So you take another 300 hours to become an instructor, right? And so on the cosmetology side, on the barbering side, you take 300 hours to become a barber instructor. The instructor class is the same on both sides. They're just teaching you how to teach. You've already learned your technical parts of the industry in the separate classes that you took for 1,500 hours. So remember now, I'm already licensed cosmetologist, been through the school, 1,500 hours, became licensed. Now I want to become a cosmetology instructor. So to become an instructor, I have to take 300 hours of, to learn how to teach. I've already become a master barber for this other person, and now I want to become an instructor for master barbering. So I take 300 hours to become an instructor, to learn how to teach. Not learn how to be a barber, but to learn how to teach. Now, what I'm doing is, if you become an instructor in cosmetology, or you become an instructor in barbering, then this bill will allow you to pick up the differences in the courses of your profession versus the other. So let's say, for instance, if you're a cosmetologist, the only difference is between cosmetology and barbering is, on the technical part of it, is the barbers can use a straight razor, cosmetologists cannot. And on the barbering side, I think the cosmetologists can do a pedicure, the barbers cannot. So if you became an instructor as a cosmetologist, and you go back and just pick up that one course of straight razor use, the hours that it takes to learn that, then you can become an instructor for both cosmetology and barbering, and vice versa. And because there is a shortage of instructors for these schools, and so this will streamline it and allow instructors that want to be dual instructors to become dual instructors without having to go through a full barbering course or a full cosmetology course. So I hope that context helped.
Thank you, sir. And I believe the optimum word is streamlining. That's what I picked up. We're streamlining.
Yes.
And who doesn't like to streamline? Do we have any questions, or do we have a question on the bill? Oh, on the amendment. We're on the amendment. I apologize. All those in favor of adding the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment is on. Let's go to the bill. Any questions on calling? Any concerns? We got a question there. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. Representative Parkinson, you are off to finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Streamlining.
Streamlining it is.
Keywords. Keywords in committee, streamlining. Yes, sir.
All right. Now then, coming back, I appreciate Representative Alexander's patience getting it back down to the committee folks, letting folks get out of our waiting queue. So let's talk about 2103, shall we? And I would say that if you can incorporate streamlining, you might have a pretty good shot at getting this through. I got a motion and a second.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. And this bill
Pardon me, I hate to interrupt you. That's not very streamlining of me. We do have an amendment 01513. Is that?
That is correct.
All right. We got to, now we're in proper posture. Let's do this. Let's get that amendment taken care of.
Okay.
All those in favor, all that did was made a technical correction to a definition. All those in favor of attaching the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. Amendment 1 is on your bill, and I am finally going to let you speak, Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee. This amendment basically just substitutes unlicensed assistant to mean an individual who assists in the operation of a funeral establishment under the direction and supervision of a funeral director or embalmer, and who is not a licensed funeral or director or embalmer. It does not mean an individual who has previously held a funeral director or embalmer license in the state that was revoked, suspended, or voluntarily surrendered with outstanding complaints. That's the amendment to the bill. Can I go ahead and tell you about the bill? The bill is streamlining 3 parts that need to be done. We want in continuing education for funeral and directors or embalmers currently in Tennessee, Tennessee licensed funeral director and embalmers are required to complete 10 hours of continuing education every 2 years. 5 of those 10 must be live, in-person hours, or virtual through an interactive computer program. And it just follows up on a 2017 legislation that was passed. Second part to this bill is unlicensed funeral assistant or a bad actor prohibits a person who has voluntarily surrendered their license to be considered as an unlicensed funeral assistant. We've had a bad actor in Tennessee, and we're trying to keep that from ever happening again to families. Pre-need sales agent is the third part of this bill. In the scope of offering pre-need funerals to the public, a pre-need sales agent and a licensed funeral director are essentially the same. Licensed funeral directors offering pre-need funerals to the public must pay for both a funeral director's license renewal and a pre-need agent registration. The bill would eliminate the need for a licensed funeral director to pay twice for essentially the same license registration based on a 2021 bill that was created that created some confusion. And that is my bill. Appreciate your consideration.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Representative Alexander? We've got a question on the bill. All those in favor of sending 2103 to finance, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. You're off to finance.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you,
Without
committee.
seeing any other business before us today, we are up. I see a hand from Representative Vital.
Very quickly, I'd just like to clarify that U.S. Senator Wesley Jones was from the state of Washington, lived in 1863 to 1932, and was the Senate Majority Whip and a Republican.
Now that was worth staying for. Now we're adjourned.